Hello and welcome back to the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for UCLA on SI. Today we're going to be grading each of UCLA's starters based on the preseason expectations that were set from up. A lot of these might be a little controversial, but we're taking a look at how they played throughout the season. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone right now who's listening, Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to me, and I cannot thank you enough. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Consistency has not been, UCLA's forte this season, and that is kind of has been proven by some of these starter performances. I mean, Sky Clark has been up and down, Tyler Bilodeau even sometimes, definitely Donovan Dent, and obviously Eric Daly as well. They all kind of fall under that category of, being inconsistent. So that's why it's kind of hard to really quantify their grade, because, sometimes Donovan Dent can look like an A-plus player, really earned his billing as, the number one transfer in last year's class. Other times he does not look like that. But I'm going to start to kind of give them a little bit more grace, especially with, how well UCLA has played to finish off the season. But still, this is kind of a broad overview of how I feel like every single player has played for the Bruins. The first player I want to talk about is Trent Perry. Overall, looking at how he's played, I think I would give him an A. It's, in between an A and then a B plus. Obviously, he has been good. Obviously, sometimes not. He started this season off on the bench. He was really UCLA's solid sixth man who could really come in there, score points at a high rate. Even off the bench, he was an efficient player for the Bruins. And then when Sky Clark got injured, he really stepped into that role as, that second guard with Donovan Dent. And I thought Perry made the most of it. Right now, he's UCLA's third leading scorer. This season, he's averaging 12.4 points per game, 3.0 rebounds, 2.7 assists, while shooting 45.2% from the field and 41.2% from the three-point line. So he has been a great scorer for UCLA. I love how he plays. He's very dynamic. His mid-range is just as good as his three-point shot. He's able to attack the brim at an efficient rate. And considering that this was his first year starting, he didn't even start the beginning of the season. But as a starter for UCLA, the Bruins became a more versatile, their offense was a lot better. And I think that was because of Trent Perry really stepping up. At times, there were a lot of conversations about him starting over Sky Clark, which he did when Sky Clark was coming back off of injury. Then eventually Mick Cronin would make the full lineup switch, running the three-guard lineup with, Dent, Perry, Clark, and then Bilodeau and Daly in the front court. So I really do like how Trent Perry is developing. I think if UCLA next year doesn't or lets him leave and they can't keep him, I think that will be a huge loss for the Bruins. But overall, great player. I'd give him an A for how much he's improved and kind of exceeded his expectations. Up next, I'm going to go with Sky Clark. And, this one is probably the hardest player to kind of give a grade to, especially this season, considering his injury. It doesn't look like he's going to try to get that fifth year. But seeing how Clark has developed over his college career, this year was a little underwhelming. He was UCLA's second leading scorer there for a while before his injury. His three-point shooting, while it is, among the best, I believe this season he is shooting 45.5% from three. It is about as inconsistent as you can get it. And I know there's, 45% from the three is, 45% from the three. It's good. He's making the shots at a, almost half rate, right? But when you kind of look at the games he's had this season, they have one game where he's like 7 and 11 from three. And then, the next two games he'll go 0 for 2, 0 for 1. And that kind of inflates how good of a three-point shooter he is. Because, these isolated performances definitely bolster that. So I think when you kind of look at what Sky Clark brings to the team, yes, he's an excellent scorer. Has he shown that since his injury when, UCLA needs it most? I don't really think so. Against USC, he had 8 points. Nebraska, he had 8. Against USC, he had 2 points. Nebraska, he had 8. Minnesota, he had 17. And then USC, he had 4. So obviously there is a little bit of inconsistency there. I'm not going to cut him off there. Obviously, he had 10 points versus Illinois. He played 26 minutes, 12 against Michigan State, 8 against Michigan. So he really hasn't made that impact that you expect him to make, as a senior who has shown to be one of the better Bruins when he's hot. I think overall it's a very disappointing season for Clark. If he didn't get injured, maybe this looks a little bit different. But when I'm giving Sky Clark a grade, I'd have to give him a C. I think a C feels right here because, again, he was supposed to be, UCLA's better players this season, and he's kind of fallen slowly down the pecking order. Obviously, I feel like Trent Perry's played better than him. Bilodeau, obviously, and then Donovan Dent has obviously came alive, the second half of the season. But that's where I'm going to lead into Donovan Dent. And again, super tricky to kind of grade these players and kind of put them in a box because, like I mentioned earlier, he'll score 30, then he'll score 3. You never know what you're going to get with Donovan Dent. But what we've seen in the last, few games is that his ball security has been great. He's been able to facilitate at a high level and really gash defenses when, he needs to. But when you kind of take all that into account and his overall impact this season, when he's hot, obviously UCLA looks so much better. When he's aggressive, the Bruins win by 20. Things like that. That all kind of goes into his grade. And for that reason, I'd give him a B+. I think, for an A, I think he would be having to average, at least 15 plus points per game. He's averaging 13.7. Across the board, all of his stats really went down compared to his time at New Mexico. His 3-point shooting, especially when you kind of look at that, last year with the Lobos, he was shooting 40% from 3. This year, he's down to 23.7. Field goal range, also, or field goal percentage also went down. With New Mexico, he was shooting 49. Now he's shooting 42. He's definitely improved assist-wise. Now he's averaging 7.5. With the Lobos, he was averaging 6.4. Turnovers, obviously Donovan Dent has improved a lot in that category. Mick Cronin described him as a walking turnover, and I think he's really worked on that issue throughout this season. This year, he's averaging 1.9 compared to with New Mexico, 3.1. Do I think UCLA got, the best transfer? Yes, I think his skills ceiling is among the best in the nation when he's hot. Obviously, we've seen that in both, USC games where he's able to surpass 25 plus points, but still consistent long-term success has been difficult for him to maintain. Scoring wise too. I mean, he was averaging 20 at New Mexico this year. Again, 13.6. He's definitely gone down a little bit, and that's not really what you want to see from, your marquee guard who is going to win you games. Kind of taking a look at his game log too. He had many games where he scored, under 10 points. Sometimes he'd score 0. Look back at the Penn State game. He played 29 minutes, went 0 for 6, scored 0 points. Not a good game for him. And then just recently, obviously, against Minnesota, 3 points. And then Nebraska, he had 4. UCLA was still able to get the win. But it's kind of clear that he is kind of taking a step back. I know it's hard to kind of adjust to a new system and that kind of thing. There's a lot of factors that go into a decline like this. But it was a little disappointing for UCLA. But going based off of his kind of recent and how he is trending, I'd give him a B+. Because like I said, he's the heart of the UCLA team. And when he's on, the Bruins will win games. But yeah, the next player on this list is Eric Daly Jr. He, entering this game, it was a little frustrating, with all the preseason hype around him. I think he was among the top 15 small forwards, and he really hasn't played like that, minus obviously a few good games. For example, his last 3, he was able to score 19 against USC, 14 against Nebraska, and 18 against Minnesota. He was also the hero in the Illinois game where he was able to score 20. But when you kind of look at the games in between, on the first matchup against USC, he scored 1 point, played 18 minutes. Against Michigan State, 3 points. Michigan, 3 points. He had a pretty good stretch through most of the season. Penn State, he had 2. Iowa, he had 4. There's just a lot of these games where he kind of disappears. But that's not really where his impact is mostly found. It's not scoring. Even though he can score, he's really good at those one-on-one ISOs in the post. But again, if he gets shut down early, we don't really see much of Eric Daly Jr. But overall, I think he's played a decent season. For a while there, he was UCLA's leader in rebounds. Right now, it's Tyler Bilodeau with 5.8. Daly has 5.5. His rebounding was great for a little bit of time. I think at one point he was averaging 6 per game. He had a stretch where he had 8, 7, and then I think 7 again, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of blurry on how well he's rebounded, but there have been good stretches where he has looked like UCLA's cutout number one rebounder. But again, it doesn't come that consistently. When you kind of look at, the expectations that were set for him and how he's performed this season, 11.3 points per game, obviously 5.5 rebounds. He shot 48.9% from the field and 30% from the 3-point line. He's an okay shooter, but again, getting there is harder than you think. Sometimes he's just a black hole on UCLA's offense. Other times he is, their hero. So for that reason, I'd give him a B. Like I said, I like how he's rebounded this season. I think he is good when he wants to be. But to get an A, we have to be seeing, at least 15 plus points, at least 7.0 rebounds, something like that would justify giving him a higher grade. And he is a fringe, B player. He's either B or B minus. He's really in that in between, but, I rounded up and gave him a B. Not a bad game or season for Eric Daly Jr. We just needed to see a little bit more. And that kind of leads me to the last player on this list. I'll go over Xavier Booker after this because he did get a lot of starting minutes this season. But I want to go to Tyler Bilodeau. Tyler Bilodeau by far is UCLA's best player. I think he was, I believe, Big Ten third team, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like that is a little low. He's a great player. But yeah, averaging 18.0 points per game. Leads UCLA in scoring, obviously, 5.8 rebounds per game. He's also averaging or shooting 51.8% from the field and 46.2% from the 3-point line. When he's hot, he's the best player in the nation. I mean, we saw in Minnesota where he was able to score 32. It didn't look like he broke a sweat. UCLA should have won that game, but that was just another case of UCLA, wasting a Tyler Bilodeau masterclass. And I mean, we've seen this team when he is not playing. Think back to the Cal game. UCLA entered that game as a 7.5 point favorite without him, and then they would lose by 8 points. But yeah, just kind of looking at, what he's been averaging this season. He's only had, I believe, 3 games where he scored under 10 points this season. He has multiple 30-point games. He had 34 against UC Riverside, 30 against Ohio State, 30 against Minnesota. He's just been a great player for the Bruins, top to bottom, and you can't really argue with anything lower than an A here. I think he's the heart of this UCLA team. I know I said Donovan Dent was, but when Tyler Bilodeau was off, there are a lot of problems on UCLA's offense that UCLA simply does not have, the depth of the roster to kind of address. But yeah, great season by Tyler Bilodeau, and A feels right here. Up next, this is kind of, Xavier Booker, a player who was UCLA starter, but still didn't really see that many minutes as UCLA starter. I think he had a few games where he played literally the first possession and he'd get pulled out. And yeah, Xavier Booker, say what you want about him. I think he had a decent season. Towards the end, obviously there were a lot of, question marks surrounding his impact as a player. He has really struggled to kind of be that defensive, monster in the paint. And I mean, there's a lot of factors kind of contributed to this. For example, I mean, he is, 6'10", or 6'11", but he is listed as a true forward. That's what he's used to. He's used to being, that scoring option for other teams. Coming to UCLA, obviously, it is a very crowded, lineup. So it's hard to kind of get his rhythm. But when he does, UCLA looks really good. He had 8 points in Nebraska in just 9 minutes. He honestly won them that game. His ability to score, it kind of caught Nebraska by surprise. And that kind of opened up the court for the other Bruins to really, take advantage of that. USC, he had 11. Illinois, he had 16. Another game where he really came alive and really set the tone early. And he did it efficiently. He went 7 of 8 against Illinois. His best game of the season definitely came against Rutgers. He had 24 points. He went 10 of 11 from the field. By far one of the best games of the season for a Bruin in general. I mean, you can't argue with 24 points, 7 rebounds while shooting, 90.9% from the field. That is just an amazing performance that I wish was sustainable. It hasn't been. But for that reason, I mean, it's kind of hard to grade him because you never know how well he could do if his effort was better on defense. but I believe he does lead the Bruins in blocks. And I think field goal percentage as well. Obviously, the bigger guys are going to be able to do that. Yeah, he leads UCLA in field goal percentage. I mean, not counting Steven Jamerson. Obviously, he hasn't gotten that many minutes this season. He's averaging 71 or shooting 71.4% from the field. So again, decent season from Xavier Booker. I'd like to see a little bit more from him, especially in the tournament. He is that depth piece that UCLA will have to rely on. I want to see his rebounding improve. He's averaging 3.5 rebounds per game at that kind of 5 position when he does play. But yeah, to give him a grade, I'd have to give him a C minus. I really wanted to see more from him. He has the talent, but the effort, the attitude. However, Mick Cronin kind of summarized his play. That's just kind of what I have to give him, a C minus. And again, that is in between a C minus and a D. But yeah, not a bad year for Xavier Booker and for the Bruins as a whole. Everyone had their moment at times, but kind of getting all on the same page has been very difficult. But yeah, that's all I have today. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson. And as always, 4's up and have a good day.